Today we are going to look at inverse functions. Which I think you may have covered a little bit last year. Cool. And today is the 9th of November. Alright, so the inverse of a function is denoted as f negative 1 x. It reverses the action of that function. So, for instance, if I've got a composite function of a function and then doing the inverse of that function, what am I going to get out? Okay, well here's another question then for you. Let's imagine we've got, we don't need to write this down. Let's say f of x is equal to x squared. What's the inverse of x squared? Like what's the opposite of x squared? Yeah. Say it.
Square root of x.
Square root of x. That's what you were going to say, wasn't it? Alright, so that is the inverse, okay? Because it's the opposite, okay? Now, if I was to look at f of the inverse of x, what value am I going to get out?
X.
Yeah, just x, okay?
Okay,
My computer's being very slow today. Awesome. Okay, so important point. In order for an inverse to exist, the function must be 1, 2, 1. And the easiest way to think about that is, i.e., it must pass the horizontal line test. To write this bit. So if I was to, let's draw, where's my cursor? There we go. That's terrible. Let me do that again. Let's say I'm going to draw a curve. It's quadratic. Still drawing, okay. It's quadratic. Zoe, you alright there? First off, is this a function?
Yes.
Because
Passes the vertical line.
passes the vertical line test. If I was to draw a vertical line, it only cuts it once, okay? So it passes the vertical line test. It is a function. Now, does it have an inverse?
No.
No, because
It's not 1-to-1.
it's not 1-to-1, and it fails the horizontal line test, okay? So you draw a horizontal line, it's cutting it twice. So that means, yes, it's a function, but it doesn't have an inverse. Okay? Because it's not 1-to-1. So let's actually, if you do me a little sketch of that, just draw a quadratic, and we'll put y equals f of x. We'll put f of x is a function because it passes my mother is calling me. F of x is a function because it passes the what did we say, vertical line test? Y'all remember that, yeah?
Yeah.
But doesn't have an inverse. Fails the horizontal line test. You did this last year, yeah?
Yeah.
Alright, so that's easy. We'll do it with an example. Find the inverse. This pen is terrible today. Let's say f of x, we'll do a nice easy one first. Equals, let's say 3x plus 5 over x. Okay, so our first step is we're going to replace the f of x with y, just because it's a bit easier. Just in terms of writing it out. And our next step is, do you remember from last year?
It was the reverse,
Yep.
the order, and swap, like do the opposite of everything.
Yes, so swap the x's and y's. Actually get a mark for doing that. So swap x and y. And then solve for y. Alright, so how are we going to solve this for y? That's our first step going to be. So I want it to be so y equals.
Oh, multiply out y.
Yeah, multiplied by y. So
Multiply by y.
the left hand side I'm going to have xy
Yeah.
equals 3y plus 5. What's my next step going to be?
You want to minus the 5. Or no, sorry. Yeah, minus. I mean, yeah. No.
I want all my y's on one side.
Subtract 3y.
Subtract 3y from both sides.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
so I've
yeah.
got xy minus 3y equals 5. Next, I'm going to.
Maybe factor out y.
Good, Nick. Factorize out y. So I get x minus 3.
Put that 5 over x minus 3.
Good, and then you divide both sides by x minus 3. And then there's one final step that you must do, okay? You get a mark for. You must make sure you change your y to the inverse function.
So it's really not that hard.
Oh, no, not at all. All right, let me draw this for you.
Yeah, like the black heads and stuff. You can't be. Yeah, no, just a little suction on my forehead.
All right, so our initial function was y equals, what was it? The very first one that we drew?
Y equals
3x plus 5 over x.
3x
Yeah.
plus 5 over x, yeah.
You're so good.
Okay, so that's y equals 3x plus 5 over x. Let's draw our inverse. What did we work our inverse out as? All right, now looking at these. Wait, shh. Do we notice anything in particular about our function and its inverse?
Seems
It
like
just
it's
looks like it's just slightly lower.
Yes, perhaps.
looks like it's been translated down.
No, it's been reflected
Right.
across xy.
Xy.
X
No,
equals y.
not exactly.
Cross, yeah, x equals y or y equals x. If I put that line in, yes, it's been reflected along. So that, there's my function. There, it's been reflected. There's the inverse of it. It's being reflected here. Okay. Good. So let's just write down, and we'll just have a quick chat about the inverses. Wow, this is super slow. Ooh. Okay, so we're going to say right graphically. Let's spell graphically. I have x and the inverse. Are symmetrical. About the line. Y equals x. And as a result of this, domain of f of x equals the range of the inverse. And the range of f of x equals the domain of the inverse. So it's just like they're switched.
I know about
Yep. That's so the domain of the domain of the function is equal to the range of the inverse. Yes.
Yeah.
And the range of the function is equal to the domain of the inverse. So looking back at this question, what's the domain of our function?
anything above or below 0 that can't be 0.
Right, so we could say x is a real number, but you said x cannot be equal to 0. Why can't it be equal to 0?
Because x is on
on
the denominator.
Right. Good. Now,
Denominator.
yeah, because you can't divide by 0. Now we've got our inverse down here. What is the range of our inverse then?
It cannot be 3.
What? No, our range.
Oh, the range. Oh, just the
Zero.
domain of the other one. Anything
Yeah.
with 0.
Right, so, but remember, the range is to do with what letter?
Why?
Right, so we can say y is any real number, but
0.
it cannot be equal to 0, right, okay? Because that's the same as the... That's the same as that one.
Find the
Okay.
range on the other one, you just know that it's 3.
Right, well, tell me properly. So
Sorry, it can't be 3.
x cannot be equal to 3, okay? We could say x is a real number as well. Not necessary, though. So that means that the range of this one is y is not equal to 3. Okay? Make sense? Excellent, good. So, here's what I want you to do. Do you have all that down? You have those little extra additional bits? Okay, I want you to have a look at page 96 in the SL book.
I think this is a 3 could be accessible to you.
Any questions? Give me a shout, okay?